Welcome to the podcast. We talk about all the things that are hidden in the shadows. This is Isaac, and on this bonus episode, I am joined by the Geare Brothers, producers and writers, or executive co-producers and writers of the new upcoming horror film / action film, Retaliators. How you guys doing?
Doing good, man. How are you?
Good. I just got off work, and then about an hour ago, got done killing bugs.
Well, we got a bug man over here.
I love it.
That's cool.
Yeah, man. We thanks for having us on your show.
Yeah, when you guys reached out, I was like, I guess, well, we have different people reach out to us all the time, but when you guys said you're about the movie Retaliators, and I was like, didn't I see that trailer somewhere? And I went back and watched, like, oh yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the film and all that, but what makes, I guess, this film particularly special for like me, growing up a metalhead and the current one right now, is that there's so many rock stars and musicians in this film and also contributing to the soundtrack.
Yeah, we have like 18 bands on the soundtrack.
Yeah, it's kind of a throwback to it's one of the things we really loved about what ended up happening with the film, which is that it's very much kind of a throwback to back in the day when, you know, action films or horror films, you know, where the soundtrack was sort of a big piece of it. And, you know, you had the music videos and collaborations on songs. Right. And it was just sort of a fun secondary piece to the movie coming out. And those days are kind of gone. You know, you don't see that too much anymore. And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun. To have it, you know, have us be bringing that back to a degree. We love it. Oh, I'm Darren.
There we go.
And I'm Jeff.
Sorry.
All right. Yeah, I was like, because our listeners are gonna be like, oh, okay, who's talking? But no, I guess you guys have been listening to our podcast for some time.
Yeah.
I'm all into the paranormal stuff, so like sci-fi phenomenon stuff. So yeah, I caught your episode on Lucifer and the Denver airport not too long ago, and that was cool.
That was like last year, when we did the conspiracy ones. Yeah,
I love conspiracy theories and stuff. They fascinate me a lot.
Well, that one was especially interesting because the whole I mean, it's now on like the list of like top conspiracies that are talked about because of the budget that was overused and like the weird art in there, and then the giant blue horse that's outside with the fire eyes. It's just like
Lucifer.
And there's a little fun fact here too. We in the original inception of the script, we had a character who was talking about the Denver airport.
It was our character that we named a character Captain Briggs, and it was in tribute to Joe Bob Briggs, who, you know, the horror host. And I don't know where the idea, I think it was your idea.
It was my idea, but
we made him a conspiracy theorist that, you know, sort of, you know, he sort of talked about different conspiracy, and then the Denver airport was the big the one he was big on. So we ended up doing a pretty big deep dive I think that's where we found the podcast.
I found it later, but but what's funny is, we ended up taking it out though, only because we loved the characters so much. And it was like
there was just too much. It was too much.
And I was like, okay, we're going to make this guy into another film.
So we saved that dialogue. We're going to keep it for a future movie.
All right. That's going to be cool. I guess for anyone who doesn't know, give a small synopsis of the film. I guess anybody who doesn't know about it yet.
It's about a pastor who is this, sort of this man of his community, a very well-loved pastor. You know, he's a single dad raising two daughters, and he's very much a turn the other cheek guy, and we see that early on in a scene when somebody steals the Christmas tree. It's actually Dante from Clerks, Brian O'Halloran, steals the Christmas tree from that they had picked out, and we kind of learn that he is this very pacifistic man, and it's what he preaches to his congregation and whatnot. And then one day, twist of fate happens. His daughter is in the wrong place at the wrong time. She is, it's not really spoiling because you could pretty much gain this from the trailer, but she is murdered in cold blood for being at the wrong place at the wrong time. So from there, we see now the pastor sort of break down and start wanting revenge. And then he is approached by someone who says they would like to offer a minute alone with his daughter's killer, with the one rule being that he can't kill him. Sort of all hell breaks loose after that. So that's kind of the plot in a nutshell.
I know when I saw the trailer for it, I was like, "This is interesting." It's like it's a revenge story, but it's a revenge story with an idea. But yeah, I guess what makes him all hell breaks loose for him is that the guy that killed his daughter, that he ended up torturing or getting revenge on, essentially was connected to a gang, and that gang starts coming after him.
Basically,
that's part of it, and then it goes into saving the everything we just discussed right there is what is shown in the trailer. There's another left turn that the movie takes in the third act that it's pretty fair to say most people do not see coming, and it's pretty shocking. And the third act gets pretty batshit crazy, and it's a lot of fun. And there's homages to multiple horror films, and Evil Dead being one of them. But yeah, it's at the heart of the movie. It is very much about that moral struggle of what would you do. And it's not a preachy movie at all. We're not really big fans of telegraphing a message of any kind in our writing. We're really interested in creating sort of a haunted house, a roller coaster going through a haunted house is sort of how we always look at it, but if along the way, there's, we can get you thinking and get you sort of arguing about it afterwards. That's sort of the goal. And so it's really, Jeff, you put it a good way the other day. It's not so much what should you do, it's what would you do.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, even if you knew what you should do, there are times when, what the right thing to do is, but you might be too tempted to do the wrong thing out of emotion, being too emotionally attached to something or whatever. And that's really what the movie explores, is somebody being pushed to that limit of really wanting to do something bad, really knowing in their heart it's maybe that it probably is bad.
Yeah. I kind of got that from the trailer, but then again, I'm excited to see the film. So
cool.
Another question that essentially I wanted to ask is, like, what inspired the story? Did it come from someone a real life experience, or was it like an idea you guys came up with one day?
Yeah, there is a real life family traumatic real life story that this is based on. Essentially, years back, our younger sister, she was walking home from a party, and she was very young at the time. She was, I think she was 19, still a teenager.
Mind you, this is like an idyllic Santa Cruz.
Yeah, this is idyllic Northern California town. She was walking home from a friend's, but when I say walking home, I mean walking on this little stretch of road with beautiful forest around, and there happened to be this little highway stretch where you had this kind of ravine, not highway, but near a highway. It was sort of near a bridge. And anyway, she was walking home, and out of nowhere, a stranger ran at full speed, tackled her down the ravine. So they fell, about 20 feet down this ravine. The man went on to very brutally attack and rape her, almost killed her, belt around her neck. She came inches from dying, essentially. Very, very thankfully, she survived. In the statistics of surviving that kind of stranger attack of that sort is, virtually nil. And she somehow kicked, clawed, fought, climbed out of that ravine, survived. That guy was not caught for years, about a decade. And about a decade later, through, the continuing improvements of DNA advancements and all of that, he was caught trying to do this to another woman and this is the very spooky part of this, in the same area. He was a taxi driver, and this was over 10 years later. So the really extra, just very scary thought was, God knows how many victims had been throughout the years that we don't know about, but so he was caught. Then a trial happened, and the trial ended up taking, as that can happen, it took 3-4 years, long, exhausting process. The happy ending, there's multiple happy endings to all this. One is he got convicted and put away, and he's basically put away for life. He won't come up for parole until he's a pretty old man, and hopefully, we'll be able to just keep him in there. But he was convicted. And the other piece and the most important happy ending is our sister went on to become, she suffered great amounts of PTSD for a while, of course, but got through it and ended up joining the fire department. And she's now, years later, she's now one of the few female fire captains in the United States. So she's a captain now, and very, living her best life and doing very well. So it was along the trial period was when, because it was an excruciating time. And I was talking to my dad at night, this one night, and he, having to hear what he had just had to witness and go through in the trial that day. And this idea just flashed in my mind, which was, something like, what if there was an underground service provided to the family members of victims, the opportunity for a minute alone with the perpetrator? What if there was a service that provided that? And I wrote that down, and then I wrote down the Retaliators. It just popped in my head. And what ended up happening was, funny enough, I kind of wrote the idea down and kind of stuck it in a drawer. And one day my sister came to us and was saying, she really wanted to get her story out. She's done press, so you can look up her story. She's done interviews. There's articles that you can find. And she had just started doing press, and she had decided, I really want to be an inspiration to women and girls that, that it is possible to survive, and the PTSD, it's possible to come out the other side. And she was at first talking, hey, do we know it in the documentary space? And we checked, but we really just didn't know anyone that could do it, and anybody really in the documentary world. And I threw out there one day, hey, we have this movie idea. We can't tell your story because, it would just be too much, torture to do that, because we had been just come off of living through this excruciating trial for years. I said, but you are the inspiration, your whole situation has inspired this idea, and we kind of want to, we'd like to go with it, but, it depends on how you feel about it. And she said, I love it. And she gave us her blessing and said, please, if it ever gets turned into a movie, just use my name and get my name out there, my story. So her name is Jody Geare, Jody. And like I said, you could Google Jody Geare and her story comes up, and you can see her case. And so it that was the very, very beginning of us sort of, and she kind of gave us that blessing, which allowed us to go, okay, let's go for it. And so the movie is not her story, but the Easter eggs are all throughout. The lead character's name is John, which is dad's name, and there is so anything from names all the way to just the idea of what you go through when you're dealing with a loved one that's been through something like that, and those revenge fantasies that I think any human just has when you're in that space. One last thing I'll throw in. This was right when we were talking about this at first. The trial came on. There was a clip that came on TV of the Olympics coach who had molested all of those young girls. Can't remember his name. He was a doctor. Sorry, not a coach. He was a doctor. And he had, it just horrific. I want to say it was like hundreds of girls. A horrible, horrible story. And they showed a clip on the news, and this was right when kind of finding the story for the Retaliators. They showed a clip of one of the fathers. They were sentencing the doctor. He got convicted. I think he got put away for life and everything. And they were giving the families the opportunity to speak. And so this father stood up and said, "Your Honor, can I please have 1 minute alone with what Dr. blah, blah, blah." And the judge said, I'm sorry, sir, I can't do that. And he said, "Okay, I understand." And then jumped over and charged the guy, and the guards had to hold him down. And it was this powerful moment, and you could sort of feel on the guards that they were like, "Buddy, I get it, but you can't do this," and it was right when we went, okay, I think there's a story here that we could connect to kind of universally,
Yeah, I'm sorry that she had to go through that, but I'm glad it turned out, somewhat of a happy man ending at the end of it.
Yes.
Which, strangely enough, me and Megan, not me particularly, but Megan has a similar story. I said similar. Her aunt, who passed away before she was even born, but her aunt was murdered, and her aunt and her uncle were murdered by these three, a mother, a father, and a son. They were kidnapped because they were trying to get robbed because they owned a pawn shop. And this is happening where we live now in Jacksonville, North Carolina. And it was like the first murder that's ever happened in the city. And I think it happened in like the early 90s or late 80s. I can't remember when.
Wow.
Yeah, they kidnapped them, disappeared for almost a year, no, almost like 4 or 5 months. I think Megan knows exactly how long.
Oh, jeez.
And they end up finding her uncle. I can't remember his name, but her uncle. They found his body later on, but they didn't find her Aunt Phyllis his body until like almost a while after that. But they end up catching the family essentially, and they've been in prison for a while now. But my mother-in-law went through the whole ordeal and stuff like that. But that around the end of the trial, when the people were convicted, is around the time Megan was born.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I think the aspect of how my mother-in-law said how she got through that, because Phyllis was her older sister, and she was like it was a big impact on her, stuff like that. When Megan was, I know, it's like we're not going down the best road right here, but when Megan was born, I think this conversation I had with her mother-in-law a while ago. She said Megan was the light that got her through the darkness when she was born and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah. But when you guys are talking about that whole story, I was like, because that's what Megan's family has been through essentially.
Well, it's interesting, Isaac, because you know what, I never even had this thought out loud until, of all people, Jody herself, our sister, saw the film. So she saw it for the first time when it premiered at Screamfest. This really, this big horror festival in LA it was at the Hollywood Chinese Theater, and she came down, and we were really nervous. It was the first time she was watching it, and we weren't really sure how she was going to take it, because it's also a pretty brutal movie, and the third act is really in many ways kind of a cathartic. It's a cathartic third act. It's kind of over the top, cartoonish, and the bad guys definitely get their comeuppance in some pretty extreme ways. So but I just didn't know how she was going to take the whole thing. And she loved the movie, and she was just going on and on. And she was really moved by the movie, which was a real, she was crying multiple times. And throughout the movie, I was going, oh no, I hope this isn't upsetting her and traumatizing her in any way. And it was the opposite. She came to us, and kind of now speaking to, you were talking about your mother-in-law, what Jody said was, she goes, what I had never thought about was the perspective of my family. This movie shows the perspective of the family of sort of that you don't necessarily, that's not usually where the people like your mother-in-law, it's not really where the spotlight is. It's usually on, of course, the victims, which is very understandable. And then, of course, you're dealing with the perpetrators. And they obviously, and very unfortunately, usually get a lot of attention and a lot of, and the understandable pieces, of course, what makes people do that and why, because I mean, listen, I'm fascinated with that stuff too. And, but it is the family that the hell that is going through a trial, being the rocks for people. And in my case, it was like the rocks of the rock. I was trying to be there for my dad. And it was very hard, but I don't never sat on that and went, oh, poor me, because, and Jeff the same way, I'm sure, just because, when your family is the victim, you're so caught in like, well, they had to go through that's hell,
right?
That's actual torment. But
I think it was through seeing another family member struggling through it as hardly as they were, that really, gosh, man, not only is it just the reverberations of violent crime is,
a lot of ripples
and also not trying, we didn't want to tell Jody's story directly, so where we started picking on was looking at the sort of the reactions of the family members and what they might do to try to cope with it. And you see that.
Yeah. And it was great too. That night at that screening, Jody told us that a lot of people walked up to her. She was inundated. Right. It was a big sold out crowd and red carpet and all that, and all the rock stuff, fun night. But what was crazy was this, we got on stage and told her story. She came out, we introduced her, and it was a really beautiful moment. And what was amazing was then the rest of the night, throughout the red carpet and the after party, she was inundated with people coming up to her, telling her about their survival story or their family that went through this. And it was a very, it was ultimately a very, just a cathartic experience. And kind of like what you said at the beginning, when something like this happens, it's so ugly and so horrible. To be able to still find a way to channel it into a positive, creative expression, right, to a film and to
Well, yeah, I mean, really, when you think about it, it's the tricky part. Just almost to rephrase what you were saying about our apprehension at Jody's reaction to it was that, I think the temptation for anybody that has a family member that goes through a traumatic experience like that, you want to make something that sort of just tonally matches that horror. But we made something that had, it has some of that, but it's also a fun ride.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's also a piece of, I think, entertaining exploitation cinema.
Well, that was our point to her. That was the only way we could do it.
Yeah.
We couldn't just live in this trauma bleak.
Right.
That's just not, we wouldn't make good documentarians because we're way too close to the subject matter. So right, it would have been beyond skewed, which doesn't make a great documentary.
Right.
And we kind of felt the same way about the story. It's like we needed to kind of remove ourselves a little bit so that we could, have it be this sort of cathartic expression, with having, being able to get loose with it and have it be not just a dirge to get through, but actually to have it be we wanted laughs, we wanted that third act to be, and there's laughs, there's like, because there's some extreme stuff going on, and there's kind of an absurdity to it. And that's what the risk was. And we didn't know, is Jodie gonna understand this? Was she gonna be offended or but she just, it was like I said, it was the opposite. So it was really great.
Well, one question, I guess the main one I always wanted to ask is that how, I don't know if you guys had any part in it, or maybe you knew why, but how did you guys get so many musicians in the film, but also to do the soundtrack as well? Before you say that, let me go off the list of who is on this album, by the way, for the movie. You got Papa Roach, you got the Retaliators, you got the Who, you got Eva Under Fire, you got From Ashes to New, you got Ask Alexandria with Within Temptation, you got Tommy Lee, you got Class Act and Motley Crue, you got Five Finger Death Punch, Nothing More, Crossbone Scully, Bad Wolves, and Einstein Kills, which I'm a big fan of them. And was it Kyle Dixon, Michael Steen, what's
Michael Steen,
Corey Marks,
the Stranger Things.
He's got like a lot of like these are well-known musicians. These guys are like, they're playing like local bands. These guys are like, playing arenas, touring the world.
Yeah, we definitely didn't call them up ourselves and ask them. Although, as much as really, the way that we got the bands, it was a long journey, But on the other hand, in the DNA of the script, was this sort of real metal spirit to it. And when we were getting early coverage on the script from professional script readers and stuff, they were saying this is like metal as fuck. It's the third act is like the birth of metal and stuff. So we knew it was baked into the cake, but how it was going to be made, it was anyone's guess. But very early on, we got the script to Michael Lombardi, who's the lead in the film and a producer on it, and also did some additional directing in the film, some of the key scenes of the film as well. He had the foresight to get the script to, when we first gave it to him, he just totally flipped out and was like, I gotta be Bishop, and we were like, yes, no, that would be amazing. And he was like, the first person he wanted to give it to was Alan Kovac of Better Noise Music, who manages a lot of these bands,
And Alan had just produced The Dirt, the Motley Crue biopic that was did really well on Netflix. So he had just gotten a taste of getting into film.
Right.
So when he gave him the script, it really was Alan's vision of going, well, wait a minute, because there's a lot of underworld characters in the film. There's a lot of bad guys and villains and in multiple ways, because as the onion is peeled throughout this movie, it's sort of you send deeper into pretty hellish territory with a lot of characters. So he was able to see, well, wait a minute, if we cast the right parts, the bands could have some of these parts, and
which makes you nervous. Admittedly, it makes you nervous at first. Yeah, you're going like, "Oh no! Like, what if these guys can't act?
Or what if
get smashed into these roles that don't make sense for them, even if they can't act?"
And also, we didn't want it. We didn't want it to feel like a vanity project. And so, what we're just so proud of is we went through a lot of time and attention to make sure that the right artists were in the right roles. And then Michael Lombardi, who's just, unbelievable actor, spent a lot of time with them, going over their characters and breaking down the acting process. And, Jeff and I spent time talking with these guys too. And
I remember developing, backstories for the characters to help,
and we worked on backstories and we wrote out, entire backstories that never made the film that would sort of they could use. And so what was so crazy was these guys showed up and absolutely killed it. And I mean, really went all in. No rock star.
I'll tell you this. This right now. It's going to blow your mind when you see it. I really do believe that, because it blew my mind when I saw it. And I was obviously you want your film. It's also very like, okay, I got to be honest with myself, and if this doesn't feel like it's working, then
it's not working.
It is, but I'm telling you, man, Jacoby Shaddix puts in a stellar performance.
Very creepy. He's so good in it,
good. And then Ivan Moody,
Five Finger, I mean, it really they just, and then some of the kills, Spencer Charnas from Ice Nine Kills.
He's got a small role, but it's really effective and awesome.
And he's great, and it was a really great role. It's wish it was bigger.
And we have a fun little Tommy Lee.
Yeah, and then some of the cameos are just sort of blink and you miss it, and sort of, but it's what served. Tommy Lee's a DJ in a strip club, and it's a funny little moment, but it's not. Everything was about serving the film, and that was always the focus, and that's what. Very luckily, that's what Alan, that's what Michael, that's what we were just very focused on. So it was just this amazing experience, and they were just the sweetest guys. Everybody was cool. They've been so supportive of the film and all over social media and wearing the t-shirts, and it's just been crazy. And such a cool piece of the whole thing with the film, and the soundtrack's just awesome. It's a great soundtrack.
Yeah, I appreciate it a lot, because when I saw all the bands that were on the soundtrack, and then also involved in it, I was like, yeah, finally, like, because I've always been a metal fan since I was a kid, and of course I became a metal musician for about 10 years, and I played shows and stuff like that, and I was always
nice.
I played.
What do you play? Are you a guitar player or
guitar
or bass or drums?
I'm
just gonna name every.
No,
I'm a saxophone player in a metal band.
Yeah. I played bass for about 13 years. I had a 5-string Schecter Stilettos. I think the last bass I played. I recorded an EP with a band called Aurorian, which is a deathcore band. I don't know if you guys listen to death metal, deathcore or not, but the band Whitechapel.
I got a good friend who does. It fills me with a lot of anxiety, but I can appreciate it.
We have a brother in a tech death band.
Yeah, we do.
It's called Son of Aurelius.
Now,
our brother.
Let me ask you this: Is this the kind of death metal where it's hard to read what the logo is?
No,
you know what I mean, it's like so web. Okay, it's not that. Okay.
No, believe me, I was extremely adamant about when we decided to design our logo. I said it has to be legible and it has to be because every time I would go to a show or play a venue or something like that, there'd be like all the bands, like their stickers on the walls or like on the doors or something, and some of them you could not read. And I was like, how is a band supposed to get known if the person walking by can't read it? Like, it needs to be a bright logo, or not bright, but it needs to be a extremely legible logo. When you see it, there it is, bam, I won't miss it again. And that's one thing I was arguing with my band about at the time. Like, it has to be legible, because the first design just looked like branches in a tree. Like, it needed.
I know the ones, dude. Yeah.
I was like, it needs to be legible. Like, when you see it, bam, you can read it what it is. But yeah,
I'm a lifelong metalhead myself too. By the way, lifelong metalhead. And then our brother Kerry, I was saying, he is the guitar player for I think they're called. The genre is tech death. I think if I'm getting it right,
it's got like a dream theater.
It's got a very proggy. I mean, the very interesting time signatures and kind of crazy structure to the songs, but yet it's got like a death thing. And he's an unbelievable guitar player, Kerry Geare. It's
definitely anxiety attack metal to me.
It's not Jeff's thing, but
I like some metal, but I like Scorpions and it's about as metal as I get.
You're going back. You're going way back.
Yeah. And of course, every band on our soundtrack.
Yeah.
But no, that's when I always liked movies that involved more metal in it, because I always said to myself that metal should be more mainstream with a lot of things. And granted, like Stranger Things put Metallica not on the map, but it did bring them to a new generation. Younger people that I guess never like, who, like, oh, that's the stuff my dad listens to, stuff like that.
I know, right?
But when I saw that the whole list of artists, I was like, yeah, finally. It always reminded me of like Queen and the Damned, how they did their soundtrack was just all different rockers on it and stuff like that. And all like the
Yes.
metal artists, like that level of like, okay, soundtracks for horror movies should be metal because metal and horror go together hand in hand.
They do.
Yeah.
They do.
After peanut butter and chocolate, as Darren likes to say.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
there's just so many good examples. And it is just such a lost, again, it feels great to
it's a lost aesthetic.
Yeah.
So it felt nice to kind of be a part of that lineage.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of it around these days,
But I was because Spencer Chamberlain with Ice Nine Kills, the last album that came out was all horror movie themed songs, which they did the previous album before that, which I think I liked a lot when they started doing that. Which I thought when him in a horror film, I was like, that fits, because the last album that him and his band did was, a horror themed album. So him in a horror film was like, oh yeah, that's gonna be exciting.
And I gotta say,
this won't be his only one. I
guarantee it. Well, and I gotta say about Spencer too. Spencer's awesome, and we loved him right away because we did I think we did some kind of podcast with him or some kind of interview, and he's the real deal horror head. We ended up talking, we've got this room of, VHS and classic horror. Yeah. And we were talking, he won me over when he started talking Silent Night, Deadly Night. Right. And then I pulled out the VHS box, and he was like, holy shit, you have the original box? I'm like, yeah, man, we collect that. Yeah. And so we were geeking out. And so he's a real deal horror fan, and obviously just a super talented guy. We're in our new script, we're actually we are writing a character that ideally I think he would be really great for. He's got a great screen presence. Yeah.
Oh, I remember listening to them back in 2010. I think I remember back to when I first heard them today.
What was that?
But yeah, I was glad because I was been a fan of them for I'd say 12 years now. Wow. And when I first ever heard them about 2010, that's when the scene metal stuff was breaking through and stuff like that. But it's funny enough in their song, I think my favorite song, Hip to Be Squared, which is, like I said, based on Psycho, or American Psycho. They have that part where it goes into like, do you like Ice Nine Kills? Not really, right? Like, their music is a little too scene for me, right? That whole that thing was like, it's perfect because how they described how when they started to where they are now, it was just like, yeah, that's because they finally found their groove. They finally found what is them, like their particular sound, like their shtick, you would say. So I hope
and it's so cool. It's so cool. It's one of those things where you go, you can't believe no one hasn't done it before. And what I love is Spencer just just went all in, and it's metal and horror. The reason I've always looked at them as
peanut butter and chocolate.
The peanut butter and chocolate is what I love. Both of them are very similar in that, and this is what I love as a lifelong metalhead and a lifelong horror fan. What I love is that their oxygen, they live, breathe, die, all of the films, all of the genres, all of the kind of waves, all underground. There's
not mainstream love for it.
No, now horror's having a mainstream-ish moment, with the kind of top horror, and certainly it's been having a mainstream moment. But the point is that whenever horror was in fashion or not in fashion, because metal's had its mainstream moments, when Metallica had the Black Album,
don't sleep on Load, bro.
Yeah, well, but I'm saying in 92, 90 to 92, metal was at and really a good chunk of the late 80s too. Obviously with all the Sunset Strip and and then Guns N' Roses and all of that.
Yeah.
But the point is, no matter what waves up and down in the mainstream horror and metal have had, the underground passion of the fans, the underground loyalty of the fans and love of the bands and love of the films never goes anywhere. And it doesn't care. It doesn't depend on any of the oxygen from sort of, the pop culture.
Yeah, they're kind of populist genres of their respective genres. It's like they might not get the critical love, but it's the people's art.
That's the other bedfellow, commonality is that you just nailed it, Jeff. Critics always shit on metal music. There's just endless examples of that. Very famously, Black Sabbath's debut record was panned by Rolling Stone, and there's just endless amount of examples. And then we all know horror, again, a lot more grace these days and right now, but
depending on who directs it,
things like that. But by and large, horror films are completely looked down upon as secondary, and the elitist sort of
it's pornographic.
Yeah, it's always just had a negative rap.
It's just for thrills. It's dumb fun, son. I don't know what that voice is.
No, I don't know who that was.
Some grumpy old man. Yeah, it was a grumpy old man, right?
Yeah. I'd give up that one. But anyway, so yeah, that's horror and metal to me are just very, very similar.
Speaking of which, what is your favorite horror film of all time, if you have one?
You want to go first?
Oh gosh,
I got mine.
Well, it's so hard to pick one, but like gun to my head, I got to pick one. I'm gonna have to go The Exorcist. That movie it does not matter how much older I get, how many times I see it, it fucks with me, man. The night I go home from seeing that every Halloween, when I go see it every year, I get a little weird when I'm going to bed. Like, is my bed gonna like start shaking? or like maybe I should close my bathroom door so I can't see the mirror. Just like, I allowed myself one night of like, being overly superstitious after seeing it. You know what I mean? That movie freaks me the fuck out, man. And it's just as a piece of art, and it's beautiful. Incredible. And also the story behind it. When you read how nuts William Friedkin was in making that film, the
incredible
famous scene towards the end when the priest is on the ground and dying, and then he wasn't getting, the priest who was trying to console him on the ground wasn't giving enough emotion, so William Friedkin slapped him.
Right.
You know what I mean? That said, roll it.
Right.
Just shit like that. I mean, so that's mine.
My all time is it's not typically considered like the greatest film of all time. To me, it is. I just love it. Admittedly, it's very hard for me to separate the nostalgia from actually how amazing it is. But for me, it's The Lost Boys. I can watch The Lost Boys over and over and over. I just love the makeup. I love vampires. I love the singular tone that film has. There's no other film no film where you can say it's got that pure 80s. It's fun. It's almost got like a Goonies feel, but then
it's glossy but kind of grimy.
And then it gets nice and gory, and and then it's there are laugh out loud funny moments, and it's just there's a style to it that's just so awesome. It's obviously super dated, but it's so I don't know. For me, I don't know what it is. I can just watch it over and over and over.
The datedness, I feel like, adds to the charm.
Yeah.
But I also thought I knew you, because if I would guess what Darren would say, I mean, I should have said Lost Boys if I was to guess, but I would have also thought Halloween.
Yeah. Halloween, is that your
second?
That would be the proper answer to give. I would sound smarter at a dinner party. And it is, because I always say John Carpenter is the master, period. Yeah. He's the man. His first, I could kind of tie up basically Assault on Precinct 13 all the way through They Live,
Yeah.
But what makes Halloween very, very special, and I'm always surprised more people don't point this out, but I dare you to prove me wrong on it. The first Halloween, 78 Halloween, there is virtually not 1 second of screen time where there isn't tension being built because of either the music or Michael Myers, everyone in the scene. And it's a movie that just, and I think there is, like, I've seen it so many times, there is a few seconds where there's not, but that's it. There's only a few seconds. It's not like a normal where sort of everything's safe. Right. You know, it's those sort of take your breath moments in movies. There is no taking your breath. It's relentless from the second the you know, the POV shot starts in the beginning. So yeah, I think that's probably the best horror film ever made. But now I'd say Lost Boys is my favorite.
Now, Isaac, what is yours? I'm not going to try to guess yours because I couldn't even guess my own brother's. But what would you say your favorite horror film of all time is?
Oh, I was going to say before I give you that answer, I was going to say Megan is going to be very happy when she go back and listen to this about what you saying about Lost Boys, because Lost Boys is her favorite.
All right, Megan's my favorement now. I have Isaac. Sorry, anybody that loves that movie, number one, that's an instant sister.
Because I remember one time we one of our conversations we would have at night, we talked about if they remade it, like who would they put in and stuff like that. And I talked about, well, if they remade it, they should change what band is playing on the pier when he meets what makes the girl? I just forgot her name.
You can't change that.
Yeah, no, because Star. When he first meets Star and stuff like that. Just because when I watched it for the first time with her, I was like, why in this? They're punk rock vampires. They have very goth punk look and feel to them. He's punk rock. He almost looks like what's his face from The Doors when they first show him and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, then they have this weird funk band with this extremely buff, oiled up dude playing the saxophone on a pier. I was like, it felt out of place. It felt like this should have been like some kind of like goth rock band playing or something in the essence, because we talked about if they remade it, the band that should be playing on the pier that night should be Motionless in White. If they remade it, right, they could have Motionless in White playing and have it be a metal show where that makes more sense. Because I thought if they had to redo it again, they should go further into the whole goth metal punk thing for everyone, right?
So
like everyone involved.
Isaac, I'm going to make the argument that because the song is called "I Still Believe," and I'm going to argue that "I Still Believe" should still be the song, and I say we bring the guy back because the guy. Let me tell you something.
Is he still doing it?
Listen to me.
Is he still doing it?
Listen to me. He still tours. He wears the cod piece. He's now, I think, in his 60s. He's either late 50s or 60s. He still tours. He does the songs from the Lost Boys, and then he has a dance routine that he does with the crowd that mimics what Star does while she's watching, and he teaches the crowd how to do it. Yes, he still plays the sax. He's still swinging the hips. Yes, listen, that's part of the thing of Lost Boys is, you're right. It doesn't.
There's an absurdity to it.
There is and there's kind of
small absurdities.
Yeah, there's things kind of throughout that do kind of stick out, and that is one of them. It doesn't make sense, but that's it's kind of why it's so great, because you're just like, what the fuck? And then everyone in the crowd, like you said, it's this punk goth vampire, and there's fires and cans and people banging their head, and then you just have this guy who literally looks like a wrestler with long hair and the sax. I gotta
say, backing that up just a little bit, I think a way to put it is there's almost nothing better to me, like aesthetically, than absurdities that work. You know what I mean?
It threw me off.
You don't know why it works, but it works. Okay.
And you know what? And here's what I'll give you guys. If it's the first time I've seen it, I can imagine it would be a shocker. That's for sure. Because see, I grew up with the movie, so I'm so used to it, and I laugh every time. I mean, when I show it to somebody and it's their first time, I mean, I'm dying when that part comes on. Yeah. So I am aware of how ridiculous it is, but I don't know. At this point, it's now just part of the lore. The guy, I love that the guy's touring and embracing it and still swiveling the hips and doing the whole thing. I got mad love for him.
No. Well, I never watched it for her the first time. I was like, "What the hell is this?" She goes, "Ah, it was just
this is not
made in the '80s. All right, it was made in the '80s. That's all
Yeah,
she gave me."
that's true.
But no, my favorite horror film series it's been since I first saw it is the Saw series.
Ooh,
dude.
good pick, man.
Well, that was a big influence on us too, early on.
Yeah,
and still today. But
those are incredible.
Dude,
Just
so good.
The concept, the idea, the villain, how he doesn't actually kill anybody. He puts them in the situation to make their own decisions. I was just like, this is so original. And I remember watching the first one with my friends, and when we watched, the big twist at the end, we were just like, holy crap! Right, you didn't even see that coming. And then, granted, I enjoyed every single one because when they create up new contraptions and new traps and new ways of killing somebody, essentially, or at least put him in a predicament to help get them out. I was always like watching it because I remember one of the funny thing is I remember I was watching, I think it's the fourth or fifth one, I can't remember, but there was an opening scene when the guy had his hands in the crushers and the giant pendulum big blade was coming down ever so closer to his guts. And I think I just got off work because I was working overnight, and I was watching it, and I was eating pizza at my dad's place, and he walks in right at the scene where he's being cut up apart, and I'm there eating, and he goes, "Hijo, how are you watching this with the guy getting his guts everywhere and stuff like that?" And I was like, "Dad, it's not real."
I love it.
Yeah,
I love the Saw movie. The perfect example right there, Isaac, of critics hate the Saw movies,
right?
And I'm sure you're probably, it sounds like you're the same way. And Jeff, I know you're the same way. I could put on a Saw any day of the week. I can just pick, I could go through any of them, even if there's something about even the ones I don't like as much as the others, it's still so watchable.
Yeah.
And just, there's something so captivating about that idea. I always say of American horror, I would say Hostel and Saw are the two, I think, best of the modern,
most important ones
of the modern, the post 80s and post 70s, post 80s.
I'll sneak Conjuring in there just because
Conjuring, yeah. Conjuring, of course, is a masterpiece, of course. But yeah, there's just something about Saw.
Yeah,
and I think Saw and Hostel came out like within a year or two of each other, and both of those movies, just what amazing films.
But I think the movie that's not necessarily scared me the most, but I think freaked me out the most, besides Paranormal Activity when I first saw that, but the one that freaked me out the most was Quarantine. Not because of the plot of the story, nothing to do with the movie altogether whatsoever. It was a situation is that I used to work overnight at a grocery store, so I would be the night stalker, essentially. Just like my hours would be 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. So I was always a night owl. So I would always watch the last showing of any movie at my local theater in San Antonio, Texas, and like the 11 o'clock or like 11:30, I would always stay late and watch the last one because that's like right when I wake up. It's like morning time to me. And I think Quarantine I watched, and it was maybe 10 people in there watching it with me, and then I stayed after the credits because it was around the time that staying after the credits, there's always something after. You got to stay after just to see what's after the credits and stuff like that. And nothing out of the credits. I was the last one in the theater. I was like, oh, whatever. And granted, you seen Quarantine, right?
Yeah. That's the remake of REC, right?
Yes, of Record.
Yeah.
When I was leaving the theater,
I saw it a while back. It's good.
Essentially zombies, but like on like steroids, and there's like it's not zombie-esque, it's more rabies-esque, and it's just like it's people are trapped in an apartment building, and the virus spreads amongst them.
It's found footage, right?
It's found footage shot.
Ask you a little of 28 Days Later, which is another film I absolutely love. Are you a fan of that one? 28 Days Later?
Yes, and 28 Weeks Later, and then I forgot if it was a third one or not.
Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking of those like the rabies type zombies that are just crazed and fast. And
it's like Cronenberg.
Yeah,
That's how rabid. Yeah, it's like rabid. Yeah.
But when I was leaving the theater, when I was going through the hall, going out to get to my car, there was no one in the theater. Not one person. No staff, no other people, not in
What?
the bathroom. No one was anywhere, right? And I was getting freaked out. Like, just after watching that movie, now there's no one in here. Like, there's no one behind the counter when I was walking out.
It turned into a liminal space.
Yeah, no one in the parking lot, mind you. I was the only car in the parking lot. Well, one of few, but when I was walking out the door, like no one at the counter, no one walking out, no one waiting for me to leave so they can clean up. Nobody. And I was just waiting for somebody like freaking rabies zombie to run around the corner at me. But when I was leaving it, that was like I was like I remember telling Megan that when we were first dating, she goes, "Oh my god, that would freak me out."
Yeah, that's pretty freaky. That sounds like a good beginning of a horror film.
Well,
Actually, it sounds
it kind of reminds me too. So the last time I went and saw The Exorcist in the theater for Halloween, I was with my girlfriend, and the drive home after, it was kind of far away, and it was super densely foggy. Like, I mean, the densest fog ever. And we were kind of quiet in the car talking a little bit, and there was like a little lull there, and then all the fucking sudden, the Exorcist music comes on in the car, like super loud, like and I was like, oh, and I totally jumped because it was in the fucking fog.
Why?
Dude.
Why did
she put it on, dude?
to fuck with you?
To fuck with me.
Oh
I was
my god!
I almost ran this car off the road, dude.
Yeah,
I was lost my shit. But yeah.
Okay, here's I don't know why I'm gonna tell this story. I gotta tell this because it's reminding me. You're reminding me of it. This is a real life horror story moment. So there's something that I still haven't forgiven my wife for.
This is great. I love this.
So Jeff and I, so my wife and I happened to be in just on a little getaway vacation in the desert, and we're driving home through the desert. So we're in that classic, there are no cars around. It's very hills have eyes, very, there's just nothing around, that kind of deserted feel right. for miles. And then I needed gas. So it was a desolate area. And so I literally was like, shit, I'm trying to find a gas station. Finally find a gas station. So it's one of these gnarly, like, the gas station's in the middle of nowhere. It looks very, kind of dilapidated. It was very windy, super high gust winds, no one else there and nothing around it. We're kind of, again, we're just in this big kind of desert. So my mind was extra. It's kind of like you at watching Quarantine, Isaac. So, and same with you. It's all this
gets under your skin.
This is all in horror gets under your skin.
It off,
So I was in the car before going to the gas station on the phone with Jeff, and we were out a horror script. And one of our favorite subgenres happens to be the whole lost, in the middle of nowhere. The hills have eyes. Wolf Creek, the Hitcher, Breakdown, like that. We love that subgenre. Duel, Spielberg.
Right.
And so we were coming up with an idea because someone actually at the time wanted us to write that kind of genre for them. So we were meeting with him and sort of discussing ideas. So, we're doing, okay, what if it's a truck stop and then it's and somebody's kidnapping their bodies in the back of this. And so we're sort of just going through this whole thing. Then we pull up to this gas station. So my wife decides in that moment to play a prank on me, which now what's funny about this is that my wife's never played a prank on me ever. We've been married for 14 years, and she has never played a prank. Not even a small prank. Now I'm a prankster. Yeah, okay, yeah. I am like, I always prank people.
Yeah.
And Jeff, you're,
in fairness too, maybe I should have known in mind because my girlfriend plays pranks on me all the time, trying to scare me.
Okay, yeah. So my wife knows. So. I park to get gas, leave my wife in the car. I go in the gas station. I come out. My wife's gone. And I'm like, what? That's weird. Oh, she must have gone inside and we must have missed each other. She went to the bathroom. So I'm pumping gas. No wife. So now I go into the store. I said, you see a blonde girl come in? And the person at the counter goes, no, haven't seen anybody like that. And I'm like, are you kidding? They're like, no. I go back out. I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Maybe she's on a phone call and I don't know why she'd be out in this wind because it was super windy, but I'm like, she must be. Then I look in the car, her cell phone is sitting on the console. So now I have this out of body experience where I go, was I just writing a freaking abduction, pickup, because now I'm going, did a pickup truck come in? So I'm literally thinking, so I'm looking around the car. There's nowhere to go. We're in the middle of the fucking desert, right? So my heart is beating out of my chest. I run back in. Okay, did you happen to see, a big truck come through? I come back out. She was hiding a suitcase in the back seat and jumps up and goes, surprise, just kidding. Oh, I did not speak to her the whole way home. I was like, I thought, she goes, you write horror movies. I thought you'd think it was funny. I'm like, no, that's
opposite, right? I know.
I'm like, my brain is way too susceptible to go down these fucking paths. And I thought you were so for like 5 minutes, which at the time it felt like an hour, but my gosh,
you're feeling every moment during that 5 minutes. It was scary. It's like, oh sheesh.
I hope the follow-up prank to that or getting your revenge on her was epic.
It's funny.
I don't think you got her back.
I still haven't got her back. I still owe her, and I've threatened it to this day. Oh, it's going to be a doozy. It's going to be a doozy, but I still haven't done, because it's got to be a good one.
I got my girlfriend back. I got her back a couple times. Actually, last night I was out at the beach, and there were like these weird towels everywhere, like randomly on walkways. And I do the move where we walk closer and I go, ah! Like, what I mean?
Why?
Because we go, she's like, what is that? And then I go, I don't know. And I go, ah! I do one of those. It scared the shit out of her. She like punched me and stuff. I was like, all right, I got you.
Oh my gosh.
It is fun pranking with, scaring people, but.
Well, it's funny. Megan gets me a lot, and then I get her a lot. I remember one time I got her because she and her sister were leaving at night to go to the store for something, and I remember I forgot to tell her something, so I ran out there, and they weren't paying attention, and the porch light wasn't on, so they didn't see me come out of the shadows. I remember I knocked on the window, freaked her out big time. Like she turned and had like fear in her eyes, like almost on the instant brink of crying. And I looked at her like, what? And she goes, why did you knock on that window? Why'd you do that? And I was like, I was already getting suspicious because I think someone's out here. I was like, oh my God. And then she'll jump out of the corner of a room or something, or sometimes she'll I'll be coming out of the shower at night. She'll jump around the corner at me or something. She tries a lot of jump scares a lot.
Yeah, my girlfriend's evil like that too. I feel you. I feel you.
Well, that's what fucked me up so bad is that my wife never
does, and then the one she does is
the one she does was
ingenious.
Oh, it was masterful. Well, she picked the moment I had that plot line in my head, and then just how would I think to look under our luggage? In the back. So it was evil.
All right. I guess one more final questions, because I know we're going over an hour here, but we're having fun, so that's what happens when you lose track of time.
I told me we talked a lot.
What is you guys' future projects, or at least anyone that you can talk about?
We are nothing we can talk about yet, but we have been writing like crazy. We're busting at the seams. We're so excited about the new stuff. We're in some meetings over the next couple weeks, and we've just gotten a brand new one out to some people. We've got a couple of new ones, and we really hunkered down throughout the whole pandemic period and just wrote as much as we could, and so we're really excited. We've got 2 new ones that we've completed, and then we've got a third one we're completing as well. We're really
all of them with lots of violence, so don't worry about that.
we're big fans of what we kind of call it is it's like exploitation with a heart. Like we really love kind of a human heartbeat behind it. We're suckers for that sort of Spielberg era, 80s Spielberg era, but then we love B cinema, cult cinema, exploitation, and horror and all of that. So we try to mix those flavorings in, and we love the crime genre too. So we kind of do this weird hybrid where actually the crime thriller is sort of the thread that is
Yeah,
in
that's the real
everything.
threat, yeah.
But yeah, we've got when we have our new stuff to announce, we will be happy to come back, Isaac, and share it with you.
Awesome. And also, what are like future projects that you guys would like to do?
You know, one I would, you know, one I've been chomping at the bit to do, but like, it's way, you know, too unrealistic. But I kind of dream about it every once in a while. I was doing a Resident Evil film, but doing it like very true to the first one, like Haunted Mansion, kind of vibe, like a very plotting, creepy. Fuck it, let's throw some puzzles in there, kind of a thing. And but yeah, because I do feel like the Resident Evil movies, they deserve better than they've been given. I mean, the action movies are one thing. I mean, they're action movies, but I feel like at the heart of the Resident Evil franchise is really horror, and I just don't think it's ever really delivered the horror yet. Even the TV show that just came out. No disrespect to those guys that are gals that made it, but just not my thing.
Maybe you, but I'll disrespect that thing sucked.
Okay, yeah. I wasn't. I didn't want to offend you. Yeah, it was awful. As soon as I saw that freaking caterpillar, bro, I was like, I'm out. I'm not even gonna finish this episode. I was like, this is supposed to be scary or cool. It's neither scary nor cool, nor I was like, ugh. But yeah,
and I didn't care so much about the race swap with Wesker, but something I didn't realize until after it was done is that Wesker is just a white version of Blade.
Yes. Yeah, that is kind of funny, right? Like Wesker it was an appropriation of like of a Wesley Snipes character.
Like I didn't realize that until after it was like flipped. Like that guy looks a lot like Blade. Wait, Wesker looks like Blade. He's a white version of Blade. Okay, now that all makes sense.
Yeah. You know, to be honest, bro, I didn't even get far enough to realize that that's who Wesker was in the show, because I dipped out. I literally dipped out after the caterpillar. And I think that was like after like that was like the opening of the show. I was like, no, dude, I got better things to do. I'm sorry.
Video games and movies have had the most horrible relationship for the longest time. And then shows,
someone's got to get it right. You know, Silent Hill 1 was okay. I thought that was pretty good. As far as, I mean, why is Pyramid Head in there? Who knows? But it was still a decent. As far as video game adaptations go, I think it was decent.
But I was talking to Megan about this, is that movies and video games should not be working together. Shows in video games should be, because you're trying to condense it 16, 17 hours of video gameplay into 2 hours. It's like a sense of a book.
It's true.
Yeah, if you take a concept from it and novels, do it, but there's so many fans to the game that if you try to do the movie, you're just going to piss off a lot of people. So turning into a show makes more sense. That's why I'm excited for the Last of Us show, because the Last of Us has been my favorite video game of all time. So
mine too, bro.
That's Jeff, man. Bro, Jeff's obsessed,
dude. You know what I was before I came here today? I was playing The Last of Us. Yeah, that's just what I do, and I love 1 and 2, bro. Like equally for different reasons. I'm obsessed. But yeah, I can't wait for the TV show to come out. And I think, like, especially for a game like that, you know what I mean? Like, you need to unpack all of that. But yeah, you know, we don't have any plans to make a video game movie ever, but if we did, I'd love to. But every once in a while, I'll be like, I'll just see something, in my head of like, oh, you could do that with the Resident Evil movie and make it good. George A. Romero had a draft of the first Resident Evil movie that they never ended up using. I think they're making a documentary on it, or they just finished it and are releasing it. So that would be interesting to watch. But
I think other than the dream of getting to do what we did with the Retaliators and get our next films made, and I mean, that really is kind of the ultimate dream in a lot of ways, what we just got to do and continue to do that. But because that's not a very creative answer, I would say really, like, I think a dream would be to get to add a contribution to a universe that's like a classic universe that I grew up with. So I mean, getting a shot at, like, whether it was A Nightmare on Elm Street or or like a Saw, or just
an Alien,
just some, Lord knows that those.
Hey, bro, we will make a good Terminator. Okay, we're gonna do it.
A lot of these things have been mined to death, but it would just be beyond a thrill to get to go, go, okay, we get a shot at, dipping into that universe. So whether it was, Michael Myers or, Jason Voorhees or whatever, but that would I think that would be
John Connor. Yeah.
Awesome. I do appreciate you guys coming on, or at least contacting me to talk about this, because I feel just as privileged to interview you guys and talk to you, stuff like that. But where, I guess, question is, where can everybody find the film, and where everybody can find you guys?
So right now, the film, we are in theaters. It's select theaters throughout the country, and kind of, it's a limited, slow release. So as we do well in certain theaters, they're adding more dates and more theaters and things like that. So the easiest way to see if it's near you is just to go to retaliatorsmovie.com. And it will be whatever area you're in, all the local theaters will pop up right away.
Retaliatorsmovie.com.
Retaliatorsmovie.com. And then we can't officially make the announcement yet, but there will be an announcement soon when we go to VOD, and then when we go to streaming, like that's all coming soon. And then as far as finding the Geare Brothers, we're on Instagram at _Geare_Brothers.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I would definitely recommend checking this movie out in the theaters, because it's just, there's something, it is one of those movies, even when you see it on VOD or streaming, eventually you're going to go, damn, I wish I saw that in theaters. You know what I mean? Like, that's how Avatar was for me. And, I think it is one of those films, probably because of the soundtrack too. It just sounds cooler, like in a theater.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to see it because it comes around one of the theaters close to me. Yeah, for sure. But like I said before, I appreciate you guys coming on. Look forward to hopefully doing future interviews with you guys about future projects and movies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and just so you know, I've had some psi phenomena in my life, and I'm going UFO hunting soon, so I'd be down to come. We'd be down to come back and talk a little bit of that too.
Definitely. That'd be real cool. But as always, guys, you can catch Hidden in the Shadows podcast on Instagram, Hidden in the Podcast 2 on TikTok, Hidden in the Shot 6 on Twitter, or links to all social media, and always listen to it at hiddenshadowspodcast.com. But as always, we'll catch your weirdos in the next one.